Okay, so once again, hello everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. For those of you who just joined, welcome to our show. What we'll be talking about today is how to create an effective UX portfolio, and then most importantly, with the help of our wonderful guest who has hired lots of candidates, we'll also do portfolio reviews. So we have, as I just mentioned, invited an awesome guest who is a seasoned UX professional, has lots of experience in the field. He will share lots of insights with you and answer your questions and help do the portfolio reviews as well. And we'll introduce our wonderful guest in just a few minutes. For those of you joining us for the first time, my name is Michael, and I'm the founder of a company called BeginX. We help people who know UX basics and want to transition into UX or just become hireable. Our program is a part-time UX career accelerator with real mission-driven client projects that provides a guaranteed way for someone to become highly marketable and land a UX role. And unlike most traditional career programs, we allow our participants to build real experience, strong real client portfolio, crucial soft UX skills like UX team collaboration, client and stakeholder management, and presentation, and master the UX job search and interviewing necessary to land a UX role, all in a collaborative and fun environment and under the guidance of industry practitioner mentors from top companies. And I don't mean this to brag or anything like that, but just to want to give you some background for credibility purposes. The company was started in New York City, and we have run many virtual cohorts over the last several years and helped around 160 people, probably more by now, get hired into UX roles. We'll tell you more about this virtual program and also make a special announcement closer to the end of the event. And of course, that part is completely optional for you. All right, so here are some companies that the grads are hired by. So we've seen lots of people go through this entire UX career transition or career starting journey. So next, what I want to do is get to the most fun part and introduce our awesome guest speaker, and then we'll jump into the actual portfolio reviews. All right, so Noel, it's great to have you here. Thanks again for joining us. Really excited to have the
Hi.
discussion with you.
Yes.
And because again, I know you have this very impressive background and I've hired lots of people. So actually really excited to have this event with you and the discussion with you. Would you like to briefly introduce yourself to our audience?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Nice to meet you. I'm Noelle. I'm based in Brooklyn, New York. So go Brooklyn. And I'm actually a career changer, which I'm sure there are quite a few of you on the call here. I started my career in marketing, doing product marketing and demand generation. And I kept kind of saying, something feels like it's missing. Someone directed me to UX, and the rest is history. I started my UX career as a generalist, meaning I did both user research and design work. So I'm happy to speak about both of those experiences. And I've also had the opportunity to kind of work in really large companies, as well as companies where the UX team was worked like a startup, or as part of like a much larger org. So my background is both at American Express and at Amazon. Now currently, I have worked through the manager track and was a UX director, and now I've moved back into the IC track to get that continue working on that technical experience. I'm also happy to talk to you about what it looks like on both of those different career paths, should you be interested in one over the other. So yeah, I'm really excited to be here. I've seen a lot of portfolios. It's really interesting how different they are across different companies. I will be speaking from my own personal experience, not as a representative of any of the companies I have worked for or work at. So just as a note there.
All right. Thank you so much, Noel. So let's jump into the discussion. So first, I basically will do like a quick interview about portfolio best practices, case study best practices. We're not going to spend lots of time on that, right? Because we want to maximize the time we have for the actual portfolio reviews. But this will help conduct the portfolio reviews kind of by helping set the stage a little bit better. So, and also just a quick reminder for everyone, if you have a question, please use that Q&A tab. This way you can also upvote others' questions and we make sure we address the most popular ones that many people are interested in. And ideally, please also ensure that the questions are related to the topic. So that will be helpful. And just a reminder, we'll make a special announcement about the program we're running closer to the end of the event. And we'll also share this career transition roadmap summary handout. So stick around if you would like to get that. All right. So Noel, first of all, if you could have like 5 top portfolio tips or so, what would those be? And I think you're unmuted still.
Thank you. That's a really great question. So I threw this into ChatGPT to see what it would say because AI is the way of things, and I was really impressed with what they said. I thought it was completely spot on. Would I be able to share my screen here and even show it?
Of course. Yeah.
Okay, let's see if this works. Can everyone see my screen?
Yep.
Yeah, so if you're not using AI, the first thing I would do is I'd start using AI. Lots of companies are looking for this. Some even ask it in their screener questions before you even send your portfolio. So that's something just as a side note. But I was really impressed with how they answered it because I think this is totally spot on. So I'd say one of the first things that we notice with portfolios is your technical craft and your storytelling. And here they're kind of talking about a clear story, a clear problem that you're facing. And what we see with portfolios sometimes is someone's just showing their UI. I designed this UI for this product. Here's what it looks like now. And there's no problem that they're solving. They don't kind of go into the user. They don't show before and after. They're strictly just showing visuals. And while the visuals may be very enticing and very pretty, they don't actually explain why they're the right visuals to solve a specific problem. So one thing that I always look for when I start with a portfolio is what's the problem I'm solving, and is the person whose portfolio this is able to clearly identify that in a very short and concise way. The second thing is attached to that, a lot of people forget to talk about the business problem. So they say, oh, my user has a lot of friction. So I'm here to essentially build a design that removes that friction. That's great. That's a great UX problem. But how does that actually impact the business or the larger story that you're addressing? So, Michael was talking about having real world experience, and this is where that part kind of comes into play, which is if you do get the opportunity to do some work with a third party, you're going to be able to ask them, okay, if I remove these frictions, what's the impact also to your business? Is there an ROI impact? Is there the ability to scale further? Are you saving opportunity costs? Whatever that issue is. And so now I'm able to look at the portfolio and I can see not only what problem it is you're solving and what your solution is going to be, but I can also see why I should care about the problem that you're solving. And so those are like the two primary parts of that first part of storytelling: what and why. And I think ChatGPT even has it here somewhere. They talk about not just your measurable impact and your strategic thinking. Yeah. So those are two things that are huge. The other thing that I think is really important is this one: evidence of thinking. So I mentioned earlier that sometimes people just kind of jump through the steps of the UX process. Step 1, personas. Step 2, journey map. Step 3, designs. And those are all good. You need those. But what we need is we need to have the connections between them. What did you learn from your persona that changed how you thought about your design? When you did a journey map, why did you choose a journey map? Why was that the artifact that you used for your portfolio, right? Or maybe you don't need to follow that kind of super linear path, but you can say, these are 3 problems we set out to face. Here's how I solved the problems. And that's far more interesting. What we often see when we look at portfolios are these kind of quote unquote boot camp. We call them boot camp portfolios because they all look and feel exactly the same. They're all following the UX workflow, persona, journey map, design, measurable impact, and it's like you can predict exactly the story that they're going to say. And there's really nothing to distinguish one person over the other, except maybe their UI is a little bit stronger, right? But if I saw a portfolio that was essentially saying I had 3 problems I was going to solve, and here's how I solved those problems, and those artifacts kind of came in as part of the story, but they weren't just the framework, then I'd be like, oh, this is really interesting. This person is thinking about how to solve a problem. They're not just following, a strict, strict process because that's just the way it's done in the textbook. Because we all know in real life, nothing goes by the textbook. So I think that's another thing that we kind of look for, and that sort of storytelling will really make you stand out because your portfolio will look and feel and sound very different than somebody else's, and it'll look more senior as well. So even though you're coming in entry level, you'll give the appearance of being a more senior, a more thoughtful applicant. So I'd say the storytelling, what the impact to the business, the thinking behind why you're doing certain things, and last but not least, I'd say like the craft. And I can send this to Michael to send for everyone to see all the other details. It's going to take too long to go through everything. I would say the craft is a big part. If you want to be a UX designer and you send in a portfolio where the colors are clashing, the margins are wrong, the visual hierarchy doesn't make sense, and I'm kind of questioning your design choices, then that is kind of the whole point of the role, is to have a good eye for design. So if you can't replicate that in your portfolio, you're probably not going to be able to replicate that on the job. So we are also looking for something that's extremely polished. And I know it takes a lot of time to get there, and it's very frustrating because you're just like, I just did the case studies. Now I have to do a whole portfolio. It's true, though. The polish really does matter. And there are some companies that, at least I've heard rumors of this, they won't even kind of go any further if they take a look at your portfolio and visually it's just cluttered and chaotic. But again, this is where you can lean on a lot of your AI tools and some of these like Wix and Squarespaces. And even Figma has the ability to design and turn something, I think, into a portfolio these days. Lean on your tools, right? Make it easy for yourself, but make sure that it's clean, it's professional, it's visually appealing, so that you're telling a story both visually and also verbally. So those are the big things that I would look for, Michael. And, there's a lot of details, but we'll go over those nuances, I'm sure, when we see the actual portfolios.
Yeah, that's great. That's what I love about this. It will have kind of theory and practice at the same time.
Yes.
So yeah, thank you for the very comprehensive response. I think you've already answered like most of my questions. I'm just kidding. But this was awesome. Do you want to add any crucial mistakes, like top 3 key mistakes that you have seen?
Ooh, yes. Okay. So I don't expect it from this crowd, but I have seen this mistake a few times where somebody who has a background in the visual arts, say photography, or they're switching a career from being just a visual designer for a marketing team, they've highlighted a lot of their work in their portfolio, and they've also kind of put it front and center because they're proud of it. What that ends up doing is it causes confusion for the hiring manager. You end up thinking, oh, is this person is more of a visual designer, and what I want is a product designer. I want someone to think through experiences and business cases. and it actually makes their portfolio look a little weaker. What you could do instead is you could throw it into the about me section as like, hey, I've also done this. And when you do that, it actually showcases that you do have stronger UI skills than maybe some others because you have a background, but you're very clearly distinguishing that UX is your direction. Another big mistake I see uh, are people who are not clear about what role they want. So you'll see their homepage and they won't say, I'm a researcher or I'm a designer. And everything will kind of be all over the place. And maybe they've done some research work and they've done some design work, but you can't actually place them into a role. So you really want to be very clear upfront, like, I am a UX designer, or I'm a senior designer, or I'm a design ops, or I'm a design researcher. Upfront, that's the role that you're looking for. If you've done both, or if you have skills in both and you think they're both cool, that's okay. You can just create a navigation in your portfolio that says research work, design work. But upfront, you really, really want to make it clear, like, how many years of practice you have, what role you want to do. That way there's no like confusion from a hiring manager. And sometimes even the people who see these portfolios first is not the hiring manager, it's someone in HR, and they're scanning for the portfolios to send to the hiring manager, and they have less experience with the roles. So if it's not clear to them that you fit, even though you do, your portfolio may never even make it to the hiring manager. So you want to make it super, super clear for anyone, even those who are not like super familiar with like the UX role.
Thank you, Noel. Awesome.
Yeah.
So that is great. And what about case studies? So maybe you could tell us a bit more specifically, um, since we were talking about mistakes, any mistakes specifically related to case studies that you've seen?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, all these are great questions. I'm sounding like a broken record. The case studies are the heart of the portfolio. So you want them front and center. One problem that you can face is, and I don't think anyone's going to have it here, is too many case studies there that make it kind of hard for someone to pick and choose. You really just want to highlight the best. It's very unlikely that someone will go beyond two or three. They're not going to read beyond two or three. So make sure the top two or three that you have there are your best examples. What you'd hate to have is, five, and someone clicks on number five and it's your weakest, right? And now that's what they're using as a representation for you. And it's tempting in your career to want to leave everything there, but it's much better to continually clean it up and just have the best ones. The one that they're going to click on first is usually the first one in the list, or they're going to click on the one that seems most relevant to the role. So if you're applying for a job that's in a consumer business, they're going to look to see if you have any products that are related to consumers, or if your project is the job is related to mobile apps, they're going to look to see if you have a mobile app case study. And if you don't, they may, say, oh, this person's not qualified. They don't have any examples of mobile apps, right? Same thing for B2B. So you really want to like think about, when you're applying for these roles, what types of case studies do you have, and how could that be attractive to certain businesses, right? Within the case study itself, it can be very tempting to spend a lot of time talking about the problem statement and the business opportunity. Like I said, they're very important. Their personas, all of the research that you did, because it's a cool and important skill set and help you get to your design. But what ends up happening is a lot of people end up spending so much time in that area and talking too much about the research that they did that it takes them too long to get to the actual design work that they're doing. And if you're applying for a UX design role, ultimately what the hiring manager is looking for is, this was my problem. I started with this design. I learned all this stuff in the middle, and now my design looks completely different. And this is why. But if you are taking super long to get to that point, then you run out of time to tell that really interesting story about the before and the after. Or worse yet, you end up squishing that and it becomes a very small part of your story. When in fact, that's actually how people go from junior to senior, when they like really hone in on why they made certain design changes, right? The end goal really doesn't matter that much, right? No one's here to like buy the product that you're doing a case study for. They care about the story on how the design changed and why it went there. They want to see your thought process. So if your case study itself is just half of it, if it's half of it, it's taking up too much time. If you go to actually present it, I've actually heard some hiring managers talk about like, oh, it took them too long to get to the stuff. We ran out of time to talk about the design. I have no idea. Or they don't understand the concept of like getting to the UX portion. So you really want to make sure that you're telling the most important parts of the problem, but you're doing it concisely. And you're really spending a lot of time on the detailed work, on the craft work of your case study. So again, it'll help you look a lot less junior if you focus more of your attention there.
Mm, yeah, it's a great points. Great points as always, Noel.
I just want
All right.
everyone to get a job that they love.
I'm sure they will. All right. Can you tell me a little bit more? Why do you think it's important to have real client case studies in your portfolio, not just hypothetical projects, and like what's the difference?
Yeah. Um, so when you work with a client, you are developing an additional skill, which is collaboration, and the ability to have empathy for the process of how we work. I think one thing that sometimes people forget is the design role is, yes, it has technical hard craft. I know technically what colors to use, what buttons to use, how to do journey maps. Those are hard skills. And then there's what people call soft skills. I consider them hard skills too, but we'll call them soft skills for now, which is being able to get the job done. And when you're working in a company, small or large, there are a lot of people who have strong opinions on what direction the product should take. And most of the time, those opinions come with really good reasons. And you can only usually move forward in one direction. So, how are you going to get your work done? Right? Um, if you're going to be a successful UXer, you have to be able to influence. You have to be able to explain your design, explain the UX process, explain why research needs to be done, explain why you feel like your design choice, why you made certain design choices, and why you should move forward with those design choices. If you can't do those skills, you're going to become what we call like a pixel pusher, which is someone will tell you what to do and you'll just do it, and it'll be very unsatisfying. You won't be proud of the designs you release, and you won't have any influence on the project, and it'll really impact your ability to move up in your career. So influence and soft skills is important, and you get that when you collaborate with different types of roles. So how do you work with a developer? How do you work with the CEO of the business? How do you work with a product manager? All of these people come from completely different backgrounds in their roles. They went to boot camps just like this, or maybe they went straight into the workforce and they learned how to do their job exceptionally well. And that how to do their job, it's it can sometimes be a very different process than how a UXer does the job. And so there can be conflict. And so what you really want to do in practice is not see it as a conflict on how we work together, but use it as an opportunity to have empathy, to learn about your teammates' way of working, to learn about their process, and to see how you, as a UXer, can be the glue that brings it all together. And you can influence things that are going to be impactful for bringing in the user voice. And you really don't get that opportunity to practice those skills unless you're working on a real life problem, right? If you're hypothetical and you're just working by yourself, then you kind of have to make up these problems in your head, right? What you can do, you can insert problem here in your portfolio or have ChatGPT give you a problem and then work in that limitation. But it becomes very hard to do that. And you don't have that real world experience. And that's super important because when you get a job, hiring managers don't always have the time, the energy to kind of handhold you, right? They want to know that they can trust you and put you in a room with other people, that you're going to be empathetic, respectful, and influential and speak up for the user voice. And so having that real life experience is going to prove to the hiring manager that you can do it, or at least that you've seen it before, right? And so this is not going to be the first time that you have to go through that sort of problem. Um, I'll even say outside of just how you work with people, there are things that influence designs that are out of everyone's control, like budget or technical constraints. You may have the most perfect idea for a design, but technically it can't be built at your company because of how the code works or how the data works or whatever the reasons are. And so instead of fighting against it, you need to think up different creative ideas, right, to transition your design to meet those limitations. And again, when you can show a hiring manager that you know how to work within limitations and still get the job done, still get it done well, you're showing that you're someone that's easy to work with, very flexible, and trustworthy, right? And like gets it that the design is not all about the designer. The design is about the user, the design is about the business and what the business can do. And you're a part of a team. So, again, all of this to say, you're not the center of attention. You know how to work with others, you know how to work within constraints, and you know how to get the job done and kind of put the ego aside. And you can really only show that with real life experience. It's not to put like an on the nose pitch for this program, but like, in BeginX, you work with real clients, right? Like that's why people join these programs specifically for this reason. Yes, you'll get technical skills, but more importantly, you'll get experience with a client. So when you do show your portfolio, you don't look so green, I can guarantee you, the people that are moving forward are people who have experience or have shown that they're willing to work as volunteer for experience. If someone came in and they hadn't worked with anybody at all, I'd probably send them back out and say, get some volunteer work first, come back afterwards, show me that you're really serious. So I would definitely keep that in mind.
Mm. Yeah, thank you, Neil, so much. Also, thank you for the kind words. Appreciate it. And I have so many more questions for you that I could just keep asking for like 2 more hours, but I know we want to maximize the time we spend on the actual portfolio reviews. And you've already provided so many great points. And I want to take a few questions from Q&A as well. So before we dive into the portfolio reviews, let me just take a couple of quick questions from the Q&A tab here. So Natalia was asking, if you were to choose one platform for portfolio, which one would you choose and why? I like Framer, Webflow, UXfolio, etc.
There isn't one that I choose. I've seen all of those, and they're all great. Sometimes I'll look at a portfolio and be like, oh, that's really nice. Like, what did they use? Like, I want to use that for my portfolio. But like, that's the extent of it. One thing that was really funny was like a few years ago, I was like hiring and I got a lot of portfolios and I don't remember what app it was. It may have been a Webflow, I'm not sure, but they all looked like I saw this portfolio. I'm like, wow, this is like so well done. The visual hierarchy, the story is perfect. Like this is great UI. Like let's bring this person in. And then like I saw like five more right after that. They were all exactly the same. They were like, I was like, holy crap, this is a template. And so it did make me think a little less of like the designer, like maybe check myself and be like, okay, like you can't just trust the portfolio look and feel. You really have to dig into their designs as well, because they could just be using a template that's like pre-created for them. But with that said, there are some people who don't bother to use the templates or really work on their portfolio at all. And then you're just like, why? There's so many options to make this look professional and you didn't choose that. So I would say it doesn't matter. Like do whichever one you like, whichever one is affordable for you. Doesn't matter at all. No one's judging your portfolio by that. Just make sure it's like clean and professional and try and personalize it at least a little bit. That way you don't just look like, a forgettable one with everybody else.
Yeah, yeah, thank you, Noel. And yeah, people ask this all the time, and typically, yeah, the answer is just like it's less about the platform, just more about just the case studies being really comprehensive and great, etc. And like it's more like less of a how, more than I'd say less of a what platform and more like how you actually present everything. So, so that's a great point. So I see a couple of questions from Kelsey, and Kelsey, we have you on the list here to, so your portfolio will be one of the ones that we'll review. So what we'll do is we'll come back to your questions like when we're reviewing your portfolio. Um, and okay, let's see what else I have here. All right, so we have a quick question from Srujana, and then we'll dive into the reviews. I have worked on several real projects for corporate and freelance clients. However, most of them are not up because they are several years old, because I struggle with writing case studies. And are there any AI tools that might help?
Yeah, yeah, that's a really fair question. So the age of the case study doesn't really matter. Um, if you are showing good work in those case studies, then you can keep them up. If you feel proud of them, keep them up because the hiring manager is looking to see what your skills are, right? So if you had this skill and you did it a few years ago, it's still relevant, then it should be on your portfolio. The only things that should not be on your portfolio are things that are like they're really important to the company and they haven't launched yet, right? Or there's like I'm forgetting the word for it, but you've signed like a non-compete agreement or something. You can't show certain pieces of work. That I would say be really cautious with, because you can go into an interview, you can present it, and people will be like, "Oh, this is like a major marketing initiative, and it's launching in a few months, and we're seeing it." They shouldn't be showing that sort of stuff. That's the type of stuff that you don't want to put on your portfolio. Everything else is fine. I just wouldn't share the date. Um, and if there are, dates in there that you can change, make it sound a little bit more recent, you can do that instead. If you can show things that have launched, because if it's old, it's probably launched. You can actually get real metrics for it as well. So that's even better. So yeah, I'd say it's fine. As far as like struggling with the case studies, everybody does. I think we all have imposter syndrome. I think I spent hours rewriting mine, every case study, sometimes a month on just one. But again, lean on the tools you have now. There's so many AI tools, not just ChatGPT, like Claude, Lovable. These are apps that will help you write better and also apps that will help you design better. So you can lean on these tools when you're stuck and see if they can clean up things for you, because you should try and spend more time on the actual craft and the work that you're developing and less time on redoing your case studies over and over and over again. So yeah, and if you're stuck, take a break. Take a week off, don't look at it at all, come back to it with fresh eyes, and I guarantee you'll see it completely different, and you'll probably be able to clean it up faster. So I don't know if that answers your question. Let me know if it doesn't, because I can try and be more specific, but don't be afraid to put those older case studies on there if they're still relevant.
Okay, okay. Yeah, thank you so much, Noel. This is great. And I know I wanted to jump into the reviews already, but I see two questions talking about AI and workflows and how it's related to portfolio. So let's address these briefly as well before we jump into that, because it looks like a lot of people are interested in that for obvious reasons. So Cherise, correct me if I'm wrong, by the way, sorry if I'm mispronouncing anyone's name. That's obviously not intentional. So Cherise is asking, as AI tools become more common, how do large companies like American Express or Amazon expect designers to use them in their workflow? For example, using AI for ideation, research synthesis, or faster prototyping. And I think this is the key part that we really want to address during this event, is this something that should appear in a UX portfolio?
I'll give you my personal opinion on this with my experience. Again, not speaking for any of the companies I've worked for, but the answer is yes. So the AI world breaks up into two things. Did I do a design that includes AI, that a user is using AI in my product? And did I use AI tools to get my job done? And I don't think that everyone has that the industry has caught up to everyone being able to do a UI project. So that is less important. If you have an example, that's cool, but not necessary. But in terms of using AI to get your job done better and faster, 100%. I got a screener for an interview at like a very well-known company, and they asked me directly to walk through a project that I had done and what did I use AI for to improve that project process. And so it's right there before they even get to the portfolio. People are asking about it, and it's been in the industry now long enough, and enough people are using it that it's like expected that you're going to have practice with that. So yes, I definitely think you want to be using AI and showcasing it in your project work. You can use it in a lot of different ways. For example, lovable.dev is an AI tool, free. Eventually, you have to pay for it if you overuse your credits. That you can say, build me a design that does XYZ, and it'll show you a concept. These tools are not perfect. They're not meant to be your final designs, but you could use it for crazy eights. And you could say, I used Lovable to come up with designs really fast. I shared some of those directions to a stakeholder. The stakeholder liked these directions. We talked about edits, and I took that feedback back and I designed something. That's a way of really speeding up the ideation process or the execution process. In research, it's the same thing. People are throwing their interview scripts into these AI tools and saying, synthesize for me. You got to be careful because they still hallucinate, and sometimes they give quotes and say a user gave this quote and the user never gave that quote, and it's like bizarre. So you do have to like double check things, right? And a lot of companies have private AI tools where they can put research in, so it's not like out there in the open. But I'm sure for some of the projects that you work on, if you're in a boot camp like this one, you might be able to put some of that stuff there and synthesize, and you'd be like, I use this to synthesize, and it could take away like 2, 3, 4 hours of affinity mapping becomes like 15 minutes, right? So again, these are ways that AI tools are totally usable, totally achievable for anyone in the market. You can ask it to say, here's something. I was working on a B2B project in an industry I had no background in. And I said, teach me about the industry. Who are the users? What do they care about? What are their jobs to be done? Because I didn't have access to research resources. So I had to use this, and it was able to pull this information together. And then I could go to users and I could confirm whether or not this was true. And it really helped me when I didn't have the resources to go out and do expensive external research. So these are all things that AI can help you with. And even if you have a portfolio piece right now, a case study that's done, you can take your final case study and shoot it into one of these AI tools and be like, take a look at this design and tell me, how could I make it better? Why? And then that's the end. You can add that onto your case study, like right now, just like that. And just be like, oh, I used ChatGPT or Lovable Claude. It recommended these things. I thought about it. This is where I thought it was right. This is where I thought it was wrong. And these are my results. Because again, no one cares how you got the information. They care what you did with it and why you made those changes. So if it's a stakeholder or if it's an AI agent, so long as you can explain, the challenge and the solution, that's really what's more interesting. And if you're showing that you're using AI tools to become more efficient, it's just that's the game, that's the industry. You can't get a job now without having experience in these tools. Do not be afraid of them. Do not be afraid to include them. There's no way I would have a portfolio today that didn't have some sort of showcase of my AI skills. It would just make me look extremely dated.
Mm. Yeah, those are great points. Well, thank you. And it's amazing how time flies, right? It's
Yeah.
So you're already talking about being extremely dated, even though like 3 years ago it was like it just popped up basically.
Yeah, just I would even say 7 months ago, 7, 8 months ago, even like or a year ago. It was like not a thing. No one was using it a year ago. Just like a
Yeah.
few people, and now it's just like commonplace.
Now it's your best friend.
Better be.
Usually. Um, all right. So awesome. So Noel, any other quick um, tips you want or points you want to make before we jump into the reviews? And I know you already covered and you already had made lots of great points, but anything else just briefly?
No, I just say like as we go into these reviews, like I purposely not looked at the case studies ahead of time. I'm trying to imitate what it would look like as, a hiring manager looking for the first time and going kind of fast. So it's going to be like 5 minutes per case study. Sometimes hiring managers take more time than that. We're going to limit it because of we want to make sure we can get through enough today. So I would just say that's kind of like my perspective going in. And also, I'm just one person, right? So, ask your peers, ask other people you respect in the field. Uh, you can even ask people on the ADP list. They have mentors that you can sign up for like an hour and talk to someone. And that's a really great place to show your case study and get looked at. Everyone's going to have different opinions. And so, my opinion, what I see is one thing. Someone else may think that story is perfect, right? And you also have to keep that in mind when hiring managers looking at your case study. Hiring managers are sometimes looking for very specific things. So someone might be looking for really high UI skills. Someone might be looking for really strong research or business savvy skills in the case study. You never really know what they're attuned to. So there's no like perfect case study, right? It has to just be a good fit for the role. So despite the feedback I give today, just keep that in mind and know that sometimes if you're applying to a specific role, you might even want to tweak and change your case study for that specific interview because you know that hiring manager is looking for something specific. You can take that same case study and you can modify it again in a totally different way for another interview to tell a different story, right? Because you're trying to tell the story for the job you want to get. And sometimes that requires, changing up the case study. So this feedback will be good, but you really do have to personalize it for the roles that you're applying for.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Noel. So let's continue to portfolio reviews, and let me just very briefly explain how these reviews will work, right? So basically, first of all, um, thank you to everyone who applied to have their portfolio reviewed. Apologies to those whose portfolio we will not be able to get to, so because we had lots of interest. So here's how this will work. Noelle will open up portfolios of a few folks who wanted to participate in the review. Then she'll spend roughly 5 to 7 minutes max or so on feedback and reviewing as basically a hiring manager reviewing someone's portfolio. After that, if you'd like, the person whose portfolio reviewed will also get a chance to ask some quick follow-up questions or provide any comments. And they'll have maybe 3 to 5 minutes or so max. If you'd like, we'll bring you on camera as well here, make you a panelist for a sec. And so this will make it more fun, more interactive. All right. And then we'll proceed to the next portfolio and so on. And Noel, so we can start with Kelsey. So Kelsey, as promised, I know you asked some questions. I see myself here. I know you asked some questions in the Q&A as well. So, and after Noel goes through this, we'll bring you here on camera if you'd like. If not, just let us know. And you can ask some very quick follow-up questions. All right, Noel, and you're still muted.
Thank you. Um, can everybody see Kelsey's portfolio on the screen?
Yep.
Okay, cool. I'm going to set the timer. Okay, awesome. So let me see. Kelsey, the designer. That's cool. Very personalized. What is all of this white space? By the way, I'm going to be talking out loud and you're going to hear what's going through my head. Okay, I'm Kelsey, a strategic product designer. Okay, great. She's directly calling out exactly who she is and what she's doing. She's saying product design, not just visual design. So I'm assuming she's going to have some understanding of the business here. Strategic, I like strategic. That's cool. I'm going to be now looking to see if she can prove what is strategic about her thinking. Scalable design systems, collaborate at the intersection of design, strategy, execution. Okay, don't get dusty in the backlog. Okay, so it seems like one of her particularly unique skills is that she knows how to move things along. So this suggests some sort of um, experience working on a team, making ideas, collecting them, and actually pushing them forward. So she probably has some sort of influence. If I brought her in, I would ask her about this. Tell me how you influenced a backlog. Okay, so let's take a look at what's the difference between design projects and product case studies? Those feel like exactly the same thing to me. I'm a bit confused. Which one am I supposed to click on? Oh, okay, it just brings me down. Does this one bring me to the same place? This is a dead link. Okay, that's a bit, that needs to be fixed. Okay, just a little bit about me. Okay, 9 years of experience, cross industry and product thinking. Great. Okay, this is pretty cool. It sounds very similar to what I saw up here. You could probably bring this information up to this section here, and then I can see it all together. Because there's for some reason I'm getting a lot of white space. I don't know if it's just my computer, if this is an error with the tool that she used. Okay, so let's take a look at the actual case studies. Okay, I like her use of imagery. It's pretty cool. I haven't seen anything like that before. She's got a lot of case studies here. Looks like she has, okay, so she must have some sort of like design work that's not just UX, I'm guessing. So maybe she's a career changer. But she has highlighted the case studies. So let me check out the first one. Where's the link to it? Okay, it's a bit low. I would prefer to have that right up here, up at the top, because that's the most important part of the link. There's no need for all this space for this picture. Let's see, revitalizing the digital presence of a Spanish immersion preschool. Okay, I like that she's like actually made it a sentence, and you're not just saying this is a desktop app or this is a mobile app, but I'm actually seeing like what the value is. It'd be even cooler if she had metrics here, like instead of just revitalizing, it's like, I don't know, was there some sort of metric of success, like increased, visitors by 20% or something like that. That could be kind of cool. Not necessary though, but I like the copy. Let's view the case study. Okay, loads pretty fast. It's great. Very clean looking. Okay. Let's see. Where are her designs? Oh, I'm not seeing the designs here. I'm seeing the results. I'm seeing some visuals, but I'm not actually seeing any UX like before and after mocks. So I'm a little confused. Is this was in the product design section, but I'm not seeing that. So I'd probably skip this this example and see if there was another example that had the designs that I was looking for. So let me go back to product case studies, because that's maybe not the right one. This link doesn't seem to be working. So let me go back here. Maybe it's my computer now. No, I do have good internet. Huh, that's weird. Okay. Well, since I'm having trouble with this oh, there we go. Let me try this one. Online designing a scalable learning. So maybe this one is more focused on design. Let me view the case study here. She have visuals. Yeah, again, I'm not really seeing like the UX I'm looking for. I am seeing some really cool design pieces here. These are really awesome, but this is not UX. This is like visual design. So I'd probably be thinking that this person is a content designer and not a UX designer. But let me go ahead and just take a look at how they structured their, we have about a 1 minute left.
Noel,
Yep.
sorry to interject. Just wanted to highlight, in case you haven't seen. So in the chat, Kelsey said that strive together and 401 are most complete. I'm about 60% complete with my portfolio. I'm not sure if that impacts anything, but just wanted to let you know in case you haven't seen it.
Okay, that's definitely helpful. So I'll just take a look at what's here. But that is what would go through a hiring manager's head. They sometimes jump all the way to the end, and then they jump back up to the beginning. So you definitely want those designs there. And there was quite a lot of scrolling to get there, and there were no designs yet. So it's going to make me think like, what's the story in the middle? I do like that the role is really clear. A lot of people forget to say what they did. And this person, Kelsey, has very clearly stated that she was doing stakeholder discovery, research, framework, and prototyping. Okay, so I know she did everything. I would call this like a full stack designer, which is super rare and super like unicorny. I can see the team that she worked on. I don't need to see the exact names. That's less interesting. And you kind of said it. I would rather just see dev, products management, product ops. That is way more interesting. I wouldn't put people's names on because they maybe didn't give you permission for that. Tools is really interesting. Be more interesting if you had an AI tool listed here, but this is also pretty cool. The objective, 6 years. Okay, so this is really clearly explaining the business problem. Be great if you could put this into numbers as well. So what's the, is there an efficiency number in terms of that you could use for the talking about their trading system, not just that they needed it, right? And that there's been minimal success, but can you really say what was the operational burden? Was it a percentage of salary, or was it hours spent doing one specific task that meant that they couldn't do other revenue driving tasks? Those sorts of numbers would be really cool. Or you can at least suggest them by saying that and putting X's in and saying that you can't give the exact numbers, but that you like did the work for it. Struggles to apply content, stuff, common sense, structural gaps. Yep, cool. So can you prove how the training maybe became dense? I might, not necessary, but it'd be kind of cool if you could put that into a number, but totally okay if you can't. Okay, so now I know so this is great. So this person has essentially said, this is a business problem. This is the specific challenge to the business problem. This is the consequence of the business problem. This is what we call like opportunity statements. And then afterwards, you can say, if we were to improve this problem by X%, this would be the result, right? So this is a really tight problem of what and why that we were talking about at the beginning. Knowledge gap, training impacted. Cool. They don't need to be this big. They're taking up a lot of space on your screen. The more visual stuff I see, the less I'm going to be able to remember your designs. So I'd probably make these a lot smaller and just kind of condense them so that I can get to my mental capacity to really focus on the design work instead of these additional kind of visuals. Who said this quote? Is this a user? Is this a stakeholder? I don't really know why I'm seeing this quote here. Scope of work. Okay, so now I'm seeing essentially the story is being outlined, and I love this. I could even see condensing everything up here into a lot less scrolling and make it like much shorter so that I can get to this, because essentially this is like what I am going to expect to see in the rest of the portfolio. I'm going to expect to see some of the information architecture and what you did to examples of rewriting language or examples of the mobile optimized layout. I'm going to expect to see those things. And you can even make these like the chapter titles of your case study. Okay, so this is like really cool storytelling. I think I would still put the title up here so I know which part of the section I'm in. Makes it a little bit easier. And there's a lot of usage of kind of like generic pictures. And while it's nice to see generic pictures, they don't really tell me much, right? It's very marketing-esque. I'd much rather see like your working examples, like a screenshot of something that you did, right? So if there was like a whiteboard, or if you did some sort of affinity mapping, if you did that sort of thing, those are the pictures that I expect to see here, not these pictures, because they don't really tell me much. And then I'm kind of forced to like read all this text, and I don't really have the time to read all of it. And language rewrites. Yeah. So I know we're kind of at time, and I want to make sure we get to other folks, but I would say like what this portfolio, hey, Maisie, what this portfolio does well is it tells the business problem really well and the context and why I should care about it. I also love that there are results here. One thing that I think it's missing, and it could be because it's just not finished yet, is that there is a lot of use of images that are like generic, that aren't actually showing me examples of your work. The visuals should be there to show like your technical skill and to give like more like credibility to like what it is that you actually did. So I want to see like the dirty hands-on sketches and the notes. I want to see the paths that you took, and most importantly, I need to see the designs. What I care more about instead of like this is very solution focused, like this is what we did, this was, this is what I did. I want to see the before and after, right? If you audited something, I want to see the results of that audit. Maybe this is a picture of like the items that you chose to audit, and I'm learning why you chose to audit those items versus something else. And I'm actually seeing like your scoring, like, okay, so you thought up of a whole scoring system to audit something. Like that sort of thought process is way more interesting than saying, I audited something. How did you do it? And then show me a picture of that actual audit, right? That would be like a more credible way to talk about what you've done rather than me kind of taking your word for it. And then again, the before and afters, I want to see the before sketches and then how those sketches evolved, and then the after the sketches. And if you could have some sort of user feedback on those sketches, that's what I would want to see as well. So it's quite a lot of scrolling already without the designs. So I would think that this would need to like get a lot shorter with the content that's here to allow for more of the scrolling to be focused on the design pieces itself. And also these results are amazing. So you could even think about, do you really want them at the bottom? Not everyone has results. Do you actually want to bring them all the way up to the top? So it's like, this is what we did, and here are the results of it. And I'm going to be like, whoa, they're results and they're positive. I'm super interested to see how they were so successful, right? Because not every project is successful. Cool. I don't know, Kelsey, if you have any questions. I can't see the chat anymore when I'm sharing my screen. So
Okay. No worries. No. So Kelsey had she put a couple of questions in Q&A before the review. So let's address those quickly. Kelsey, if you have any quick comments or questions, please, you can just put those in Q&A or in the chat in this case, because we already. So what Kelsey was asking earlier, so she was saying, I have a predominant freelance and contracting background. How can I position and prepare myself for corporate/large companies? How do I translate my value in interviews?
actually, you're in a really good position. And you could take a better opportunity of that on your homepage. I would have never known that you had so much freelance experience. What you could do here is right up at the front, be like, I had been working with companies in the freelance capacity for like 5+ years or whatever it is. My unique skill is that not only do I do full stack design, so I'd probably use the word full stack design, but I'm also able to help companies set up their backlog and prioritize it so that it doesn't get forgotten in the future. So essentially, you're leaving them with a legacy and a way to complete their legacy. So I think that if you wrote it that way, that would be way more powerful, because you're saying, I've been doing this for a while with real people. Here's what people like about me and why they keep hiring me. And it's both the skills and it's the execution that you can do. You know how to like project manage. So I would rewrite this paragraph here, you can make it a few sentences longer and really hone in on that. And then prove to me how much freelance work you've done. Actually put the logos of the people you've supported here, because not everyone has that. A lot of people just have like, one person that they've worked with, right? They don't have the experience you do. And that's a really unique skill set. So put their logos here. You can have it running across the side. You can have it just like listed, very similar to the beginning of this BeginX session where we saw, this is where designers end up getting jobs from. You do the same thing. This is who I've helped support over the last few years. That's a really interesting way of condensing it right up front.
Awesome. Thank you. So I think another question that Kelsey had is, what makes a portfolio memorable?
It is the quality of design and how clear the challenges were that you faced. And I don't mean just that problem statement at the beginning. I mean, every project has challenges along the way. Did you have a challenge with stakeholders because they were really convinced about a certain design decision and you had to prove to them why it should be different? Or was there a massive challenge because the most perfect design got vetoed and you had the strictest of limitations from a dev perspective? How do you maneuver those? The case studies that I remember there's like, 2 or 3 primary problems where it's like, I see the design go from the user friction to the result, but I also see the business, like the how we worked problem in the middle, and I can remember it by the end of the case study. If there's like too many things in the middle, then I forget and I lose track of the case study, because you see how fast I went through it. I'm not living and breathing these case studies the way you are. No hiring manager is, and so it needs to be like almost like you're talking to like a kindergartner, like really clear. These are my challenges. And the more I have to scroll, or the more kind of like erroneous images or like additional stuff, the less I'm going to be able to remember those big story points, because there's just going to be cognitive overload. So even though it looks really clean, like obviously this person has UI experience and some marketing experience. If I can't immediately see, oh, she's or he's or they have like solved these sorts of problems, and I can't go back and say, oh, my job, these are going to be the types of problems they're going to have to solve, but I can't remember if they have experience with that or not. Okay, maybe somebody else will be more memorable. You know what I mean?
Awesome. All right, Noel, last question. By the way, so Kelsey did mention that she preferred not to be on camera. So that's totally optional, right, for everyone. That's only if anyone wants to. Like, you can join us here on this virtual stage, and, if you can call it that. So we'll jump to the next portfolio in a second. Last question that we'll take from Kelsey is, what signals make you confident a candidate can succeed in a product team?
Yeah. So one, showing that there's been some experience in the past. So, if Kelsey talks about and really highlights the amount of freelance work she's had here, I'm going to build confidence there. The second one is that they did get to some sort of metrics. That's not always required. I'm not on the page anymore, but there was a page where she had metrics of success. That's really cool, because I'm thinking this designer is not just building for the sake of doing UI. They're thinking about like the outcome. So they're thinking about like why I'm hiring them and paying them money to get a job done. So that is also something. And then the last thing is I see multiple changes in the design pattern itself. And I'm seeing the designer think through multiple different designs and not just getting stuck on one, but they're really working through different versions. So I'm seeing a lot of design work. And if that design work looks really clean, then I feel really good. If I don't see a lot of design work, or I just see the final solution, especially if the final solution is not strong, then I will skip over that person, because I don't think that they're showing the thought process of design, and I will lose confidence They may just be a great interviewer, but if they can't show me their design work, it's such a risky hire. And it's just, yeah, it's a real risky hire, and it's not worth making that mistake.
Hmm. All right. Thank you so much, Noel. So, Kelsey, yeah, Kelsey said, I'm very grateful, Noel. Thank you so much.
Yeah, this is awesome, and this is a really great start. Can't wait to see the designs here. It's also like for everyone who's showcasing it, it takes a lot of guts to put your portfolio out there. I don't know if I can personally do this.
And it's often one of the most difficult projects for most designers, right? So it's
Oh, so hard. It's like I hate my portfolio.
all right. So Noel, do you want to pick who we go to next from the short list that we have, or do you want me to suggest someone?
I'm just gonna go in order. So, uh, can am I pronouncing this correctly? Chidin, not how do you
Chidinma. I think it's Chidinma.
Chidinma? Chidinma. Okay, I'm gonna do Chidinma's next.
I think I saw something from Chidinma. Are you on? I see thumbs up, so I hope that's from Chidinma. All
Okay,
right.
great. Can everyone see the
Amazing.
portfolio?
Yep. Stay connected.
Okay, let me set my timer, although I went way over on the last one. Okay, this is really cool. I have not seen this on a portfolio before. It's animated, and the first thing I see is stay connected. I'm probably not going to put my email address here because I have no idea, like, if this is going to be a good portfolio or not, and I don't probably want to be like written. However, I'm super impressed that it's there because ultimately it's all about staying connected, and it looks really good. I also love that the subscribe.
You got muted, Noel.
Have I been muted that entire time?
No. Just last 5 seconds.
Okay, great. um, this button's way bigger than this one because that's the primary button, and it's just super clean, the interaction. So whether this is a template or whether this is the person, the use of colors, the margin, it's just really cool. Okay. Okay, so really, really clear. Great use of space. The copy that I'm seeing is like put together and condensed. I can see who it is. She's an innovative researcher with a knack of problem solving. Okay, she's talking about AI, e-commerce, and consumer technology products. Okay, so off the top, I know if I'm a B2B person or if I'm working in e-commerce, this is the right portfolio to be looking at. This is the industry. I love when I can see the industry in the initial copy because hiring managers and recruiters look to see if you have experience in that industry. Not everybody requires it, but if you do have experience in the industry for the role you're hiring in, it's way like more likely that you're going to get called in for an interview because you're going to like understand them. I also can see that she's a researcher, so I'm going to be expecting some research stuff. Okay, so projects, ooh, publications. Probably don't need to be looking at publications, but I am very curious. This person has what they've written. Okay, cool. So really clean picture. It's not granulated or pixelated. Okay, so here are the research studies. I'm just doing a quick skim. Okay, these look like the actual case studies. Cool. And then here are the research studies here. So I don't often, oh, okay, so this actually looks like an article. Okay, so this person has experience with writing, which is a good UX skill. And they've actually published some stuff. So they probably understand how to talk to stakeholders if they understand how to write. That's pretty cool. How do we personalize a buyer's shopping experience to meet the needs of style and production during COVID? Oh, that's an interesting case study. I've not seen something like that before. And I'm assuming that these are maybe her photos, which are pretty cool. The designer's unique challenge was catering to an audience. Oh, this is probably the designer's um, work. Okay, so she's catering to an audience is still apprehensive clothing style. So I'm getting a bit of the context here, what the motive was, and what her role is. So it's really, really clear now what the problem is. It's super condensed. I can see what the role was. She was a lead researcher. She was also responsible for project planning, development budget, interviews, app, and design. Oh, everything. That's really interesting. I really like seeing the project plan and the development budget here because a lot of people think that design is just the UI. But how do you actually push a project forward and work with people? And so a project plan suggests that this designer probably had to work with somebody to think about prioritization. I might ask a question about that in the interview. Okay, so key findings. We kind of just jumped to the key findings section. They need the experience of shopping in store and the convenience. So I can tell this is coming from the research because of the title, the fact that it's italicized and feels a little separate. I'm seeing metrics here. So they've done a lot of work to actually understand the user. Um, I'd be curious. I don't know if it's here. Okay, here it is, the research plan. So I am seeing how long the research plan took. That's important. I want to see if this is short or a long process. I'd also be super curious about their research methods if they're a researcher. So let's say they're using semi-structured interviews, conducted inquiry, surveys, concept. Okay, so they use like quite a lot of stuff. They didn't rely on just one specific research method. So it's at least triangulated, and I know that they're getting a good view. And she's looks like spent some time on peer review research as well. Interesting. Okay, cool. So semi-structured interviews. Okay, so now I'm seeing exactly the breakdown. So if I were a research director hiring, I would care a lot about this, the exact methodology for each of these pieces. I might even have optional, but it'd be kind of cool to put like a little parenthesis here and show how much time it took. Um, or if you worked with like a team of people, you could put it here, but it sounds like you're the sole researcher, so that's cool. Um, okay, so we have some of the questions that are listed here. I don't need to see all of them, but I'm seeing some of the main ones. Oh, and the recruiting. Recruiting sucks. Anyone who's done recruiting knows how terrible it was, how terrible it can be. So this person has experience with the recruiting as well as interviews. That's pretty cool because not everyone does both. Sometimes jobs actually break out into someone who specializes in recruiting and someone who specializes in interviews. So this person at least has empathy for those things. I'm seeing how they broke this out. I might ask why the breakout is so skewed towards women, or I'd go back and read this a little bit more closely, and see if like the target audience was female. I'm guessing it is. Um, okay, had shopped. Okay, so this is an example of what I was talking about earlier, where you're actually looking at a visual that is based on the work, and it's not an image that I can like pull from the internet. So I'm able to visually see how this designer researcher is thinking about like visually structuring their work into needs and behaviors, and how they're thinking about who their folks are. And it looks like they even have a hierarchy here: top level, second, and third. People who don't know their sizes. People who want to find. Okay, so it's almost like I'm getting to know my persona through this visual. I also think the visual is really clear and easy to read, so that's a good sign. Because I'd hate to say like, oh, I'm a researcher and I use visuals, but then I look at the visual and it's completely confusing and I can't follow it. So this is really clear. They know how to tell a story visually as well as verbally. The only thing I'm not sure about is, what do these top levels mean? I'd have to read the content to know. But are these like jobs to be done, or has to test a brand to find it? She goes, okay, so these are like kind of like the results. I probably want to explain what these buckets are a little bit more. Maybe it's in here. No, I probably want to explain the buckets a little bit more so I know like what I'm looking at. I'm assuming that the different colors mean different users. And I'm assuming that these things are like actions, like user needs, the most important user needs to the less important user needs. I'm not exactly sure why the second level and the third level are kind of in the same bucket, and this one is kind of not marked. So I might go back and clean this visual up. It's close, but not like totally clear. Um, if yes, which of the capital W should be lowercase? which the various variations of clothing items are important for you. This is really cool. And this comes from the survey. So now I'm actually getting to see like the survey results. And this looks like the survey results of the study. Very cool. And then I'm seeing the recommendations. Okay, our platform should provide features, selecting their sizing. Oh, 3D modeling. Yeah, I've always been wondering about this. Are you using your own profile? I'm curious if this is, so this is a recommendation. Is this the actual site, or am I looking at mock-up with body shape and measurement avatar? Is this a mock-up from the designer? If it is, it'd be kind of cool to see the sketch first, not just the end result. I'd love to see like pencil on paper. Even if you didn't do it beforehand, do it after and stick it in. I'd love to see that and kind of hear what the user thought. And these look like potential ideation recommendations. There should be an item on the site where available and stores can purchase, pick up line. So these do look like the recommendations here. Not exactly sure how they are related to these images though. And then I would also be curious to see, so we've kind of gotten to the end. I know it's a research role, so I really wouldn't care too much about the designs, but they did say that they did the design work at the beginning. So I was kind of expecting to see that design work here. And I would be curious to hear how the stakeholders responded to this feedback. So the feedback is really great. The methodology is really great. The results are really strong. Like this person is clearly technically skilled in research. I'm curious to see like, were the stakeholders surprised by any of this? Were there any pieces of research they didn't respond well to, or they weren't able to do? And so you deprioritize that, or were there pieces that they really latched onto and like why? And then if you could highlight those ones up front in the recommendations, and maybe even, I would even say like, if I could see a picture of the model, you don't even need to do bullet points. You can even like point to sections of that mock that show that recommendation in practice. So that would be kind of cool. Some people do like A, B, C, D, or some people do arrows, things like that. But it just got a little confusing to me at the very end in terms of like, were these the mocks from the product that exists or from the user? And if that wasn't really a part of the work, because in the role here, by the way, these outfits are really awesome. I'm like kind of vibing them. If that wasn't the here with the prototype, and I'm missing the whole prototype piece from the design portion. So if you didn't do the full design process, I'd take it out and really just focus on the research, which is probably what I do for this one. But if you did do, in fact, do the app web design, it's like kind of missing from the portfolio, same as the other one. I really want to see, this, or this is actually a two-part case study. This case study is the research case study. Then there's a whole separate case study that's the web design case study. And you can link to that and say, here's my research one, here's my web design one. And that's when I'm going to really expect to see like the sketches, how you decided to put, certain components or features, or buttons and things like that in certain places, why you change them. What you don't have here is usability testing, and I would expect that in the web design portion, as well as, since you mentioned prototyping, I would expect to see usability testing. Right now I'm seeing this person's really good at upper funnel generative testing, and I'd put them there, but I'm not really seeing the whole web design piece of it. So for researcher, yeah, 100% I'd bring them in for an interview. For a web designer, I'd probably look around and see if they had more stronger examples of design. And if they didn't, I wouldn't bring them in. Okay. Questions?
All right, awesome. Thank you so much, Noel. think I already see Chidinma making some comments. I have the design sketches, we'll add them. So Chidinma, any questions you want to, any follow-up questions that you have? We could either, okay, raised hand, amazing.
Okay.
So let us know if you want to just put your questions in the chat or if you want to join us here on camera.
I will say, while the questions are coming in, I did notice that this this candidate, when I clicked past the research studies, I then saw these. I was so kind of attracted to the research studies because they said they were a researcher at the beginning, that this is where I landed. And I kind of missed all of this, which is the case study, which, as I'm looking through it, has more of that design work that I was asking for. I'm still taking a lot to scroll down to it, but I am seeing these examples of their work. Like I said, I really love seeing that. They'd walk through this and talk out loud. I'm seeing their flow. That's pretty cool. Just a form is not enough for a case study, unfortunately. It's people would want to see something that was more complex. I'm sure there's a lot of complexity to this, but that's just the nature of the industry, unfortunately. Don't shoot the messenger sort of thing, but we want to see more than just a page, but actually a flow. So this might not be the first case study that I put on the list. I'd probably do something else, and I'd probably also I'd separate these into different pages. One which is research studies, and one which is product design, because that I missed that on the first kind of go around, and that is a big thing to miss. To have a hiring manager just miss something that you absolutely have. So I would make it more clear, and also make it more clear if you're a researcher and designer, put the role that you want, hide the part that's not as important. If you're going for design, put this way at the bottom. If you're going for research, then it belongs there, and then, put this on a different page. But like I completely missed the design piece. That would be like the last piece of feedback.
Okay. Thank you so much for the feedback. So if you notice in the first page, though, that's the new product that I'm working on. And this is an older one, so I did organize them by design, research, and other in the previous page, because I'm having issues with the site. So I would definitely be able to incorporate the feedback into this newer portfolio.
Got it. Okay, so you're mixing like two different links together, and that's the cause of the navigation issue.
Yeah, because the first one, I had some issues with my database making the images load. So I'm transferring all the data from the other project on here, but I don't want people to miss it, because there's a lot of info that needs to be populated on here.
Got it. Okay, yes, that's yeah. I think this one is a lot stronger than this one, so yeah. That's cool. Sounds like you have that feedback ahead. I love this piece here. This is clear. And I see what you mean. I would just say, again, like, you have a lot of options here, so, which is fine. But just make sure like your strongest ones are up front. You really don't need this many. Like,
okay.
I would probably, like, for portfolio, unless you're trying to continue to be a freelancer and quantity is important, for portfolios, you do not want to complicate it for the hiring manager. Top 3, top 4, take everything else off. You can still keep it on your site, just hide it from the user. Like, don't make it live, because it's just gonna be confusing for them, right? So you just want to give them the best examples of your work without thinking too much of it. Because you have so many publications, I'm going to know that you have a lot of experience. I don't need to be like proven to it by seeing it here. You can leave this for your freelancers when you give them a portfolio, but for like job interviews, top 4, period. That's it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, but this is really strong. You have like a really, really good start. I mean, looks nicer than, some senior portfolios I've seen.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's definitely the one you saw. It's a lot older, so this is just me trying to update my skills.
Got it. Yeah. Sorry I missed that because you probably have stuff here. Yeah. Okay, cool.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Noel. Thank you, Chidinma. Great to have you join us here. This felt like a radio show or something. People calling in with your phone sound. All right. Well, Noel, are we still okay? I know you have some special circumstances, and we want to let you run very soon. Do we have time to do one more maybe quickly?
Yeah, let's do one more.
We can do if you have I think next up we could do Mariana if you have her portfolio up.
Mariana. Yes, I do. Mariana. And I do want to say, like, I know I'm being like saying what comes out first. These are all really great. So I'm impressed already with everything that everyone has. I'm giving as true of a look into the inside of a mind when someone goes through it, and I think it can be really surprising, right? You can see how people could easily make, like myself included, easily make a mistake on a portfolio and miss content that's there. And so, that's why it's so important to make these portfolios like not overcomplicated and really just drive home like navigation errors, right? Can really cause you to miss things. Make sure that there's no way that someone could there's almost like too many things to click that they miss the things that you want them to see, right? And I would say this is like watching a user interview, right? Go through your beautiful design. You're like, oh my gosh, how do they not get it? This is such a simple thing to do, and then the user's like clicking all over the place. So you never know how someone's gonna read your portfolio, but the simpler the better. Okay, cool. So I have Mariana's up. I'm going to share my screen. I'm not going to bother with the timer because that's been ineffective.
Do
Okay,
you want me to time it for you?
sure.
Because I don't want
I
to
can,
hold you here for 2 more hours, Noel. I want to make sure that we try to stick to time so you're not, we don't hold
yeah,
you up too long.
yeah. Okay, so available for work. Cool, love that. Work resume about. Ooh, I love seeing resumes because it makes it really easy. Hiring managers or recruiters are going to love this. So that's cool that it's there. Just the contact me, it's simple. My work, resume, about me, cool. What sets me apart? Ooh, I love this. Because ultimately, what sets you apart as a designer? I am trying to figure that out as a hiring manager. So you might as well just tell me. Leadership exposure. Okay, you understand the why behind the roadmap. I'm going to ask you a question about this in your interview. You're talking about ROI, so I'm assuming you understand the business and the organizational goals. People who don't think through the business impact don't write this type of stuff. So I believe this person. I don't know if I call it leadership exposure. I'd probably reword that in ChatGPT and talk more about business impact or business influence. Leadership exposure just sounds like you worked at a startup and you had exposure to that one CEO, which is not what your copy says. Multilingual thinking, that's cool. I love that. Diversity is cool. Doesn't necessarily make you a better or worse designer, but I think diversity is really important, and I don't think there's enough being done in the design world to think about the different ways that diversity can impact design. So that's kind of cool. Empathy driven. Everyone says empathy driven. That's great. People will like that in an interview, but meh, you probably pick something else. Okay, how do I contribute to a team? Okay, so already this person is telling me that they're thinking about the business, they're thinking about how they get work done, and they are also telling me they have technical skills. Beautiful. I'd probably bring this person in for an interview, provided their case study was strong. So research, blah, blah, blah. I'm assuming that this is in the order of the UX process. That's kind of what it looks like. So sure, they could also do it in the order that they feel their skills are strongest. They could put design up at the very front. but that's fine. It looks like the design process, they have done everything. Balancing trade-offs, driving research, clarity of problem. These are big issues in the UX world. So I'm going to say this person gets it. They understand what makes things difficult when it comes to like getting work done in UX. Okay, cool. They have some, oh, that food looks amazing. Ugh, they got me with the food. Cool. Visual designer. Okay, it's always nice to see that someone has like an artistic eye, makes them feel very like not just business savvy, but like the designer. Cool. Awesome. Okay, so the work is what's the most important piece. Looks like a clean portfolio. They've obviously put work into it. They're using modern stuff. Awesome. This looks like maybe something that they've actually done. Soul match. Consumer, maybe B2B. Fascinating. This could be, is this mobile? Looks like they have a diversity of stuff. I'm a B2B person, so let me check the end-to-end design. Okay, up front, I see the product. Great. I don't have to scroll down to the bottom of the page. Here it is. They've like hit me with a money shot. Awesome. Does it look clean? Do I care enough to actually learn what they did? Yes. So it's clean enough that I care to read this case study. Okay, so unified experience, developer center unified experience. That's okay. The title's fine. It'd be more interesting if it was like the value or the impact or something like that. But I guess they're unifying an experience. Let's see. Built a centralized developer center from scratch. Cool. So they really are end to end. Replacing multiple disconnected sites. So they've kind of shared the challenge with a single hub. Okay, so they're probably working with something that's already existed. They're not building net new product. It is new, but they're using things that used to exist in the past. Software tech team project. I'd be more interested to see the number of people they worked with, not it's a team project. Everything's a team project. August, the date is cool. It'd be more interesting to see the range. So 6 months, 8 months. I don't need to see like the date. Software and tech, that is the industry. Got it. So I would also wonder, Mariana, if this is, maybe it really is just software and tech, but is it also is it going to be enterprise UX? Because that's words that people use when it's like internal tools. And they also use B2B if it's business to business. Maybe software and tech is the actual like industry term for that because people like look for those keywords. So I just like double check that that's the right keyword, but I actually don't know. View the live site. That's cool. Not everyone can show the live site because it hasn't launched yet, which is okay. You don't need to show the live site. So the challenge, okay, I'm seeing immediately up front, really quick to the point. Developers relied on a few disconnected documentation sites, creating slow onboarding. Okay, cool. But this could be better. You could say, like, what is slow onboarding? Was it 4 days? Was it, 50 hours? And then what was the impact of it being 4 days or 50 hours? Did it impact efficiency or ROI, or the fact that they couldn't do additional work because it took too long to do the up funnel work? I would want to see the impact, the metrics impact from this. I think you can get those numbers. I would expect you to have those numbers with the polishedness of the site. Design goal, create a single intuitive hub. Okay, fantastic. So everyone's seeing here that we see the challenge that comes from the like either the designer or the product team, but then it's really clearly broken down into like what the designer is doing. So this is a really nice way of showing it. I just don't see the business impact. I see the problem. I just don't see the business impact. And then successfully launched. Outcome is really great. So they launched it. They consolidated the 4 sites, streamlined the navigation. But were there metrics? Like what was the result of this? I'm still missing like the impact piece. I know the problem and I know the solution, but I don't know the result of the solution. And I feel like that's missing here. And since you talked a lot about, focusing on ROI and like strategy was like your thing, like that should be in this piece. And then your role. Okay, so associate product designer, you don't need to put associate. Just say you were the product designer. Let me know if you were one of 5 or if you were the lead, or if you were the solo. That is what I care more about than your title. Titles are like, whose line is it anyway, where the points don't matter. They don't mean anything. Just say specifically what it was. So you contribute to research, wireframing, contributed. That would suggest that you weren't the lead. That's fine. It's okay to contribute, but this is your opportunity to really like, you know, like give yourself a shout out. Like, what specifically did you do? Yeah, you contributed to the research, but maybe there was a part of the research that you really owned, which is like contribute to the research, owned the recruiting, or owned the synthesis, right? Something like that. I want to see specifically what's yours, because if your words are too modest and humble, and you're talking too much about being associated and contributing, I might think that all of these results are somebody else's. And I'm gonna be like, oh, this is such a good case study, but is it her who achieved this? Or is this really, I'm looking at somebody else on the team who achieved this? So you just want to be like, you really want to give yourself credit where credit's due, even if it's tiny. And that's what I would expect to see here. I'd probably, if I brought you in for an interview, have you do an additional like study, either a whiteboard session or like an app review. That way I could see you think and try and parse out what's yours in the case study versus like what's your team's in the case study. So I think that's probably like the weakest point so far that I would really like work on. And you can really fix that with just like better language. Just put it into ChatGPT. Okay, so the development center, I'm seeing a couple of pictures, impact and outcome. Okay, so here are the metrics. Yeah, you can throw some of those metrics in here. Well, one or two. You hit them from me. These are great. Oh my gosh, fantastic. Right up front. So up front, I can see the results. It's beautiful. This person knows the problem, can get to the point fast. And I know that the results were great. I am sold. Now, what problems did she have to face during this work? The new experience delivers these things. Awesome, great, who cares? How I gathered insights. Okay. So focus group interviews, again, we're seeing an example of the work that was produced. I'm seeing a little bit about the methodology. You don't need to ask the questions, but it does give it a little bit more flavor. I trust that I can actually see what this person's research looked like. They're not just telling me they did research. They're showing me that they did the research. Ooh, and then they really highlighted the biggest friction point. So I can really see off the top of my head, okay, if I don't need to read all of the details, but I can see they really wanted this one particular thing. Well, they did a survey, it looks like, as well. Qualitative insights. I love that. Triangulated research is so important, because oftentimes if we just rely on a single perspective, whether it's verbal or quantitative, we miss the full picture. So this person really thought about the full perspective. Plus, this is beautifully presented on the page. It's so easy to see the visual hierarchy, what I'm looking at. 83% experienced users valued of image. Okay, great. So your day-to-day work, they learn about new extensions. Interesting. If I were in research, I might ask them like why they picked these particular questions, how they led them to their design results. I'd probably ask that question in the interview. Like, why did you focus on these things? How did you come up with the questions for your survey? That doesn't need to be in the case study. That would be something that I would talk about in the interview. Card sorting and information architecture. Everything is capitalized. Card sorting. I guess information architecture is the name. I don't know. That S feels like it should be capitalized, but I'm not a copywriter. Card sorting is really interesting, and this is a really beautiful way to show the results of card sorting. I'd probably read through this in more detail, but I don't have time right now. But I know how it works, so that's pretty cool. Now I'm in my ideation section. So I mentioned this earlier, making it really clear what chapter you are in. And so this person has done that. Ideation is here. I'm guessing research was here. Yep. So I can see that they're following the UX workflow process, and it's really clear. And then they're following the How Might We framework, which is a really popular artifact for UXers that they use a lot. It's a really beautiful like map of this. So I'm going to say, okay, even if this person was a part of a team, they clearly know design because they have made this portfolio super polished. It's very beautiful. The UI is really strong. It's really clear to see how they're walking through visualizing like really complicated results. That's pretty cool. I'm just going to skim a little faster because I know we're almost out of time. Okay, so this is exactly what I was talking about before, which is I need to see the concepts, the first concept and the after the research concept. And this person has done what I was recommending, which is kind of put 1, 2, 3, and then explain what these things are. So I can see them in the context of the page and like why they're the problem. The only thing that I think is a little hard about this is maybe you do it later, is it's a little hard to see the things. So you might want to, you could, you might have to zoom up in the interview, or you might want to like break it up, show the full page and then break up the pieces. So you can zoom in and I can actually really see the changes because I'd have to zoom in. It's okay. I could do it. I don't mind doing that. But like it's a little hard to see because it's so tiny, you know what I mean? So here's the product overview page, the redesign. And I think what I'd easier for new users, you kind of like got straight to the before and after solution. I think I might want to see, okay, you've done this first concept, you've broken it down some pieces here, which is cool. I think I might want to see some more thought process in it. So it's like you've gone from first concept to last, but were there like additional challenges in between, or did you just get it perfect the first time? You know what I mean? No one gets it perfect. So I think I'd probably want a little bit more of a story. Like, were one of these pieces the product person disagreed with you, or maybe you mocked out like 5 different examples and you showed those 3 or 5 examples to the product person and they picked one, and then dev also picked the same one, or maybe dev picked a different one, and like why they did that. I think I'd want to see like that that's that thinking piece that I was talking about. So like that's what would get you from like junior to senior, is to really like go into a little bit more depth on these pieces, if you can. The other thing that this is focusing mostly on like a single page. I know you brought together a lot of different products. It'd be kind of cool to see visuals. Oops, I didn't mean to go all the way back there. It'd kind of be interesting to see visuals of oops, sorry. I think I did something. Yeah, I just scrolled down too far. Visuals of what like the old pages look like. Because you said you brought 4 together. So what did those 4 look like? And also, what were there probably some like backend data limitations that you had to deal with as well, bringing the 4 in together. So like, what were the challenges with like getting rid of the legacy sites? That might be like an interesting story to tell on top of the UI. That talks a little bit more like the business problems. So you could consider like throwing that in, although it's like not super necessary. And then the landing page, dark mode, light mode. Okay, it's kind of cool. That's very much like a UI visual thing. Additional screens. That's cool to see too. If you're going to do additional screens, you might also want to show error states, because some people like see that is like really like completely polished UX. You don't just like show the design, but you know how to do errors. So you could do something like that. You could show like an example of like an error state and how that changed or something like that. Designing for everyone, you're talking about accessibility. That's pretty cool. Working with developers, what you did, that's also really cool. I'd ask these questions on interviews. Yeah, so in like, and what I learned, this is really important to have. A lot of people will ask this in an interview question, like, what would you do differently? So what this case study is doing really well is it's showing the full UX process, right? I see the results up front. I know this person can design. Overall, it's very polished, so they know how to put visual hierarchy together. There aren't like broken links or lots of unnecessary white space. So like the piece is done. They got to the point but they were still clear about all of the challenges. Yes, there's like a couple of things that could be improved in terms of really honing in on like the impact of the business challenge, not just like what the challenge was, but like why it was so bad from a revenue or metric perspective. I would like to see that. Um, and then they have the metrics. So like they got the biggest, they got the big things. They have the chapters. I'm seeing actual examples of the work that they did. But again, it's heavy on the research and not as heavy on the design. I'm seeing the results before and after, which is kind of cool. But I think I'd still want like I if they're not going to show it in the case study, I'd expect them to talk about it in their interview and like really break down some of these pieces and walk me through the challenges with some of the design work and the limitations and like what dev said, what product said. Like that's the type of like detailed work that I would want to see. And if I didn't see it here, I'd still probably bring this person in for an interview, but I'd be asking them to prove that to me in an interview. And if they couldn't answer those questions, then I would not be so sure. I would be less confident. So I'd really want to understand like why these things were highlight the design decisions more, not just the solutions. And so that's like something for everyone because everyone's portfolio that I see and entry level and sometimes even senior level, they focus so much on the end result and what happened that they don't talk about the how they got there, or they rely on the research to be the how. When research is just part of it, the other how part is like, why did I choose, 4 lines versus 10? If there were 10, did I do a show me? What are the interactions? Why did I choose these colors? Why did I choose a video instead of something else? Why is the video taking up half the screen? Was the video an issue for dev? Like, I really want to know those intricacies, not just it looked pretty and it like solved the problem. Like, I really want to understand why you made super specific UI choices. They weren't just like accidental. You're not just like no one's a perfect designer. They don't go from research to perfect design. So show me the mess in between and don't be afraid of it because that's where the juice is. But overall, super cool, super polished. This person obviously knows how to work with people, development and business. I love that they care about diversity and they think about accessibility. And it's really easy to get to their next project. They haven't confused me. So yeah. So overall, this is a nice one to look at if you're looking for a template.
Amazing, Noel. Thank you so much. I didn't want to interrupt you, but we are at like 19, 20 minutes almost.
Yeah,
So
I know.
I love it so much. And I know we're completely over time. We did promise to let you go like 30 minutes ago. So thank
That's
you so
my
much.
fault. That's my fault. I'm
No, no,
still
I
awake.
mean,
So
so I do want to
let's
wrap up soon, unless you really want to.
let's take 5 minutes of questions. I don't want Mariana to like miss that opportunity the way everyone else did. So if you have questions, I can answer.
Okay. And let's for a couple other people, so we'll basically have to give you a rain check. So
Sorry.
we also invite you to schedule a first UX or next UX role hireability assessment that we do. So if we did not get to you, then we encourage you to book that call. And it will not be a portfolio review, but it will be a hireability assessment, which will also be helpful. Okay. And yeah, Noel, thank you so much for staying for so much longer. Mariana, any quick questions? We have like 2 to 3
Yes,
minutes.
yes, sure. Thanks so much, Nell. I really, really appreciate that. That's like I wrote the whole list of things. Yeah, so that's really great. I just wanted to ask you also about like my main page, like homepage. As soon as you land there, I feel like I cannot find the right words to describe myself. Like, yes, I worked on complex things, but I still want to have personality and empathy because that's what I care about. So yes, if you could suggest how I can improve the language here based on what you saw, that would be great.
Sure. Question for you. Are you only willing to work in New York City?
No, no,
Okay,
no.
so then take this out because this is pretty much saying I work in New York City. I'm not willing to move.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, okay.
So product designer turning empathy into strategy. Yeah, that's very generic.
Mm,
Um, so let's do this together. So I'm gonna go to ChatGPT and here's what I'm gonna say I saw about you. You did the research as well as the design work, right?
Yes. Like lots of research, to be honest. And yes, I was involved in design, but lots of research.
Yeah, strong UI skills. Um, loves working with dev. Really understands the process of working with others. Cares a lot about how projects impact the business and how they get accomplished, not just the UI. Write me a 2 to 3 sentence, very short, professional, crisp portfolio homepage copy to impress hiring managers. What is this going to say? That's too long. So make it shorter. Shorter. Let's see. Full stack product designer, especially in research UX and polished UI. I turn complex problems into simple, scalable. That's pretty crappy, actually. I don't like that. So I'm probably going to say just take out the details of research and UX and UI. Full stack enough. Highlight that I'm business savvy and my specialty is end to end and moving projects through business red tape. Let's see what it says. Okay. Full stack designer who moves complex projects from idea to impact, known for navigating business complexity and turning problems into clear, scalable solutions. This is what I would use.
Okay. All right, that makes sense.
I'm going to put all of this in the chat here so that you can copy it and decide what you like. But play around with it. See, like that's how easy it is to use these like AI tools to get what you need. So I would definitely do that, and I do that here. This is kind of floating off to the side. I actually didn't even see it. It's not necessary. Just get rid of it.
Okay.
And then yeah, these pieces here are they're in your contact me. You don't really need that. You could leave it here if you wanted, but I'd put them underneath this. I wouldn't break the page from left to right. That's a little weird.
Okay. And then that like animation, like the ball, should I just remove it because I didn't want to have just a white space, or I was thinking to put my picture on the right side instead. So I don't know. What do you think in general? Is it worse to put the picture or not really?
It doesn't matter. I mean, your picture's here in your about. A lot of people use this look and feel for their homepage where it's like it's very Apple, right? It's like super clean in there. You know, I have to say like I'm not going to pronounce her name correct, but Chidma, I loved her homepage. And that was a really nice way of just use one color and copy. It was to the point and I wasn't distracted. The ball is fine, but doesn't like whatever.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Okay, great. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you. Good job.
Noelle, thank you so much.
Yeah, of course, anytime.
Really appreciate you staying a bit longer and doing such comprehensive reviews. And also, as I mentioned to a couple of other folks, we can kind of give you like a rain check. Also encourage you to book those hireability sessions that we offer. We can also chat then as well. So you'll see a link in the chat as well. All right. So Noelle, yeah, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And yeah, again, thanks for staying. I appreciate you staying like 30 minutes longer and doing this.
Yeah, bye everyone and good luck.
All right. And also for as promised. So thanks again. I know Noelle had to leave, and yeah, because we promised to let her go like 30 minutes ago. So really appreciate her staying a bit longer. As promised, people often ask about the program that we're in. So let me also quickly tell you about that, since it may be a great opportunity for some of you. Again, this part is completely optional for you. So the opportunity for you to build very strong real client portfolio and real work experience, and on top of that, get crucial soft skills like team collaboration, client management, and presentation, along with the career prep to master UX job search and interviewing, so you can actually land a UX role. So who is this program best for? It is best fit for ambitious people who know UX basics or come from a design, research, creative, tech, or related background, and look to become highly hireable and land their first or next UX role in one of the most effective ways and without quitting their current jobs or other commitments. We're also pretty selective and look for motivated and committed team players. So we ran lots of cohorts over several years and helped about 160 people transition into UX and land their first or next UX roles. Alumni of the program have been hired by companies like SiriusXM, Coach, Google, ABC News, Meta, JP Morgan, many, many more. The accelerator was also ranked by SwitchUp as a best UX program and actually at #1 last year, and also featured in Fortune magazine and ADP list. The advisors and mentors are also UX practitioners from companies like Google, IDEO, Amazon, The Economist, and many others. What you gain after completing the program is build and advance not just the hard skills, but the crucial soft skills, gain real experience, robust real client end-to-end case studies with digital products, expand your professional network, and master UX job search and interviewing so you can actually land a UX job. In fact, our grads have done so well that we also offer a money-back guarantee. So you either land a UX job or you get your tuition back plus an extra $500 on top of that. Of course, you need to follow the guidelines, which we can share with you. If it sounds like you may be a good candidate, you can learn more on beginnex.com. Our cohorts are quite small and do fill up quickly, so please act soon. Otherwise, even if you're a great candidate, you may still end up on the wait list. Also, to thank everyone in our community who attended this event, you'll be eligible for a $500 tuition credit if accepted. To claim that credit, what you want to do is by tomorrow, request a free no commitment career transition consultation where we'll do a first UX job hireability assessment for you. You also get the link in the chat. You can find it on the website in the consultation section. By the way, just to clarify, so these sessions are designed to not just be some quick program pitch or something like that, right? They're designed to, first of all, take a look at your background, skills, and experience, identify what is possible for you to do to become a highly hireable UX job candidate, uncover the key bottlenecks restricting your UX career transition progress, create a personalized action plan that will get you results, and also see if you may be a good fit for the UX Career Accelerator program. Finally, also wanted to mention that we frequently run different types of virtual events. So we'll keep you updated about upcoming events and share resources via email and our newsletter that usually goes out every week or maybe a couple of weeks or so. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. And thank you to our wonderful guest once again for taking her time to join us and provide all the valuable insights. It was a huge pleasure to have all of you here. Thank you.